Hello and welcome to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two film studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and this week we teamed up with Tchaikovsky to reboot a beloved family tale of a piano-playing prodigy and his friend who journey into an English boarding school to battle horrific demons. But before we get into something new, it's time for something old as we check in on our last feature in Box Office Report. Now, last episode, we released the drama, like the horror...
Historical murder
drama,
thriller?
Yes. Eine kleine Nachtmord.
Which means a little bit of night murder.
A little bit of night murder, which was about Mozart, wasn't it?
Yes.
We cast Mozart as a perfume-style serial killer.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Box office sensation.
Yes.
In a way where no one expected this.
Yep.
But some unread journals showed up.
Uh-oh.
And suddenly you have like the Smithsonian and the Vienna museums started actually testing the actual musical instruments. Now, Mozart's instruments.
Yeah.
Like they tested the ivory.
Yeah.
They were ivory. And of course, obviously,
yep.
sad for the death of the elephants that were made.
Yes.
Beethoven's piano, on the other hand, had some not definitively human remains, but unidentified remains.
Really?
Yeah. Tchaikovsky's magic flute. Also, are
you kidding me?
This is definitely human material. Not sure where it came from.
Yep.
Suddenly, it's become clear that a lot of these historical composers may or may not have been serial killers.
Are you kidding me?
And people are accusing of us of spreading fake news because we may be trying to make sequels to this. Yeah. And, these historical... like, there is no such thing as Tchaikovsky's actual magic flute. There is no such thing as the Vienna Museum for Mozart's pianos.
Yep.
But, there's news articles out there. I can direct you to the websites of, where these definitely real articles are. And they're definitely not... mass media hysteria trying to drum up...
So you're kidding?
Funds for our sequels.
So this is like the first time that Hollywood has produced a film with elements of truth in it.
I mean, supposed truth.
Supposed truth.
We'll find out whether, it was all a publicity stunt later on. Wink, wink. After people have already bought their tickets.
See, you know what I smell in this? You mentioned like documents and manuscripts and this and that. National Treasure 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our next sequel.
Because we already made National Treasure 4?
Yeah, we rebooted it.
Yeah.
It was just called National Treasure. But now we're going to call it National Treasure 5. And it's going to be about chasing down historical documents and manuscripts from famous musicians and composers.
I think it's a great idea.
All right, on to This Week in Trailers. And first trailer for you today is Green Book, starring Viggo Mortensen and I'm going to get this name wrong.
Mahershala Ali, I believe is his name.
Yes, that sounds about right. And
I apologise for any butchering of that. He, the only thing I know him from as being, he was in House of Cards. I believe he was the owner of like the Ribs joint, which was frequented by the main character in that particular series. Yep.
And this film's directed by Peter Farrelly, who you may know as one of the Farrelly brothers.
Yeah, I mean, with a title like Green Book and a director like Peter Farrelly, you're like, in the book, the film title doesn't actually tell you anything about the film.
Yeah.
You would expect something about Mary / Dumb and Dumber style stupid caper. It is possibly as far from that as you can get.
Yeah. So still, I mean, tiny elements of comedy, but they're comedy with regards to the characters themselves. But this is mostly a drama about a famous jazz pianist called Don Shirley, who sort of had their prominence in the, I want to say,
20s and 30s,
and who befriends a sort of New York mobster kind of guy.
I think he's hired protection as the pianist travels around the south of America playing concerts for the rich white people. Is met with racial tension and vitriol, and then hires this ex-mob man to protect him and drive him around. And it's sort of like a reverse driving Miss Daisy kind of thing. They form this ridiculous sort of like charming a friendship that sort of transcends the racial divide, which is I mean the primary reason for Viggo Mortensen's character to be there is because of the racial divide, and in bringing them together with that they sort of form this friendship. It looks really
super good. Yeah, like just in a way that I was not expecting whatsoever. It's incredibly well acted. Viggo is pulling out one of the best accents I've never heard him actually act in his own accent before, because in Lord of the Rings he was doing some kind of like
it's the generic American is what most of the people go for in those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But he's originally
he's like
Danish.
He's
maybe?
Danish, I think. Yeah.
And you hear his interviews. He's very soft spoken and very sort of calm, and has a bit of a Scandinavian accent. In this one, it is full blown New York.
Yeah.
And he pulls it off like because he's the way that he speaks, and that doesn't fit in with the South, which is where the film is set, is a point of contention between the characters.
Yeah.
And if they're going to bring it up that it is, his accent is something notable, you have to pull it off really well, and he does.
Yeah.
It just seems to work.
It works really well because there's a nice sort of relationship between the two. Mahershala's character is very I guess proper, sort of knows the upper echelons of society, and sort of conducts himself in a way that's very like, not high strung, but like fancy and man of the moment, I guess. Whereas Viggo's character is very like rough and tumble, can't really write either. He sort of, there's a bit where they show him writing letters to his wife, and he's just writing like, I think one of the lines was like, "You remind me of a house."
Can I just say as well, he's writing back to his wife, who is Linda Cardellini.
Yes.
She's shown up as like the wife of the protagonist in probably about 4 or 5 different trailers this year.
Yeah.
She's filling that role that whoever used to fill that role, Judy Greer,
she's still going.
Yeah,
it's like it's a Greer versus Cardellini standoff at the moment. So Cardellini has her role as Hawkeye's wife in one of the Avengers films. I think.
Sure.
And then you've got Judy Greer, who's consistently playing the divorced wife as
divorced mum,
Jurassic World, and a couple of other ones as well. Just I mean, she can act. Give her like a meaty role, please. Yes. So anyway, see that later pretty soon actually, sometime in September.
I very, very much expect you to be seeing those people at the Oscars this year. I think they'll both get nominations.
Yes.
Just based on the trailers, their performances look fantastic.
It's quite a good one. On to slightly less good ones. We have, fresh from the minds of Walt Disney and his studio, is The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, based on the Nutcracker book, the sort of classic children's book, and Tchaikovsky's very famous Nutcracker suite.
So you say famous children's book? I didn't know there was I assume there's the story that of Tchaikovsky's opera. Was it the story first and then the opera, or was it the other way around?
I think it's the other way around. I'm pretty sure. So okay. The Academy is telling me that The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, the story itself, was written in 1816 by E.T.A. Hoffman, estimated time of arrival Hoffman. And the suite itself was composed by Tchaikovsky in... Oh, yes, you're right. It was based on the book.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
It was...
See, this film, though, doesn't... To me, again, the trailer's very... doesn't give a lot about the story. It seems like they're telling the story of a woman who was in the ballet, and then how the ballet was actually kind of like telling the story of a real life adventure that this person went on, and now the daughter is going on the same adventure that the mother is, like this, like Christopher Nolan layers upon layers of like inside the mind of the people who created the ballet, and it seems very loosely based on the Tchaikovsky ballet, of the. I would say the same name, but I don't remember the Four Realms.
It's just called the Nutcracker.
And so this is another one of those Alice in Wonderland style.
Yeah.
I think the Maleficent was the other one they were talking about.
Beauty and the Beast.
But this is just gross
terrible.
CG, bad. I feel as though all they do nowadays is just put people in green morph suits. Like, don't even bother with costumes, because we're just going to CG the costumes on.
It's the ultimate goal of Disney to just be able to get an actor's face and then CG the rest of it, because that's the kind of style they seem to go for. It's this.
Which, I mean, it's exactly what they did for Helena Bonham Carter as the Queen of Hearts. And it's just like we just had her face. That's all we needed. Everything else is fake. This looks very much like those bad Tim Burton Alice in Wonderlands, where it's like, look at this beautiful world of imagination that we created by shooting everyone on a green screen and doing it all in CG. And we couldn't get the rights to Alice in Wonderland. What do we go for? Some other out of Creative Commons or whatever it is.
Some other beloved story. I know that we currently reside in America and we're American movie producers, but as far as I'm aware, the Nutcracker is relatively well known in American circles and sort of with American kids as a Christmas thing.
Sure.
In our home country of Australia, I have no idea. I've never seen the Nutcracker. I don't know the story at all. So I'm guessing that this film is going to make a ton of money in America when it comes out. Probably not so good around the world, though.
Yeah, maybe in Russia. I think it isn't. I feel like Tchaikovsky. Maybe I'm just conflating the fact that he is Russian with the story being Russian. I believe the basic story is that a Nutcracker, which is also something that growing up I've never had a toy soldier where you put a nut in its mouth and you crack it.
Again, it's just a weird like.
So the toy soldier falls in love with a toy ballerina from a jewelry box, and they have an unlikely romance.
That sounds about
I don't know how Disney's going to spin that out into a 2-hour CGI film, but
I don't know how, but there's going to be merchandise.
With so Helen Mirren, Keira Knightley,
Morgan Freeman's
Richard
in this one. E. Grant. What is he doing there?
They're really loading it up, and then the main character I didn't recognize initially until you realize that she was in a whole bunch of films 5 years ago when she was 12, and I'm like, oh, holy moly, she's this 17-year-old kid who was in the Twilight Saga and Interstellar
as well. Going back to Richard E. Grant, I mean, how does Disney cast these things? Do they go back and look at like his filmography and look at like With Nail and I and think, yes, he's the perfect actor to cast in our like big budget CGI? He's a great actor, don't get me wrong, but like, how does someone like that get cast in a big budget Disney film?
How many of those people that we named do you reckon actually had to do an audition?
I have no idea.
Do you reckon Keira Knightley, Helen Mirren, Morgan Freeman actually had to show up and do table reads to see if they got the part?
I'm sure Keira Knightley has some kind of contractual thing because of Pirates and the fact that she wasn't in any of the other sequels. So they probably had to get her back for that. Helen Mirren, Morgan Freeman, I don't know. I have no idea how. They must have just wandered onto the set.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, it's green. They probably thought they were on the set for another film. Disney's like, yeah, it's that film. And then they just shot them and just comped them into whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised if Disney actually owns a fully high-detailed CG render of Keira Knightley's face, and they can just use it for whatever they want now anyway.
I think they're just collecting actors' faces. Anyone that wanders into the studio one day, they don't even have to go into the sets. As soon as they walk through like the big gates at Disneyland, they get facially scanned, and then that's it. They're like,
it's like, oh, who we get? Is that me as an extra in the background of this film? I don't remember. Oh no, I did walk up to the security desk at Disney once, and they must have just put me in their database somewhere.
Exactly. All right, and to finish off this week's episode, something with possibly a little bit more quality to it. Slaughterhouse. Is it Slaughterhouse? Yes, Slaughterhouse Rules, starring, well, according to every film article out there about this film, it only stars Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, but it also stars
Asa Butterfield, Michael Sheen,
and is directed by a newcomer, actually.
Yeah, so both the writer and the director of this haven't done that much before. Yeah. This very much feels like Hot Fuzz, very much feels like Attack the Block.
Yeah.
Those sort of high-budget indie horror, English horror sort of.
Yes.
The basic premise of this one is that while like a fracking operation opens a giant sinkhole out the back of an English private boarding school.
Yep.
And deep buried within that sinkhole is some sort of evil monstery demon, which then terrorizes the people who are in a not too far off boarding school, whose headmaster seems to be Michael Sheen, and one of the teachers is Simon Pegg.
Yes, and Nick Frost sort of plays a janitor, I guess, or a groundskeeper out in the grounds. And basically it's about a ragtag bunch of British school kids who go up against this monster / demon.
It doesn't really get too deep into what the monster is. I get the sense at some point that Michael Sheen might be a vampire. It's kind of hinting at some points, reprising his role from Twilight, and also from Underworld. I know he played a werewolf in Underworld. That's my bad.
Close enough.
And there seems to be like these Harry Potter overtones in the school itself. And I'm not sure if that's for comedic value or if it's an actual like a hierarchy of the boarding school itself. it comes from a pretty good pedigree. It looks like they're trying to emulate the directorial stylings of Edgar Wright. And I don't know.
It looks like a lot of fun. The cast seems like they all gel together and make a nice kind of, ragtag group of kids. And some really fun gags. The classic kind of like childish screaming at things, and yeah, it could be a lot of fun. A lot of like little witty one-liners as well, where there's a bit where Michael Sheen's character sort of says to the Skoda, referring to like the German car.
Yep. Skjoda. I think it's Swedish, isn't it?
It could be.
I mean, I'm pronouncing it Skjoda and putting like an umlaut over the O, so I kind of felt it's a little bit more foreign than German.
They're owned by Volkswagen, so
there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Then there's like a monster is attacking them, and he's just sort of saying, "Now make sure you put on your seatbelts, everyone." And then they sort of head off, and I like, you know what? That's kind of fun. I like a good like.
It's very British,
British kind of thing. Yeah,
act inappropriately, even in the face of impeding danger.
Yes, exactly.
Impending. But, danger can impede as well. So let's just, the jury's out on whether I said that right or not.
Good. All right. See that later this year, October. Halloween, actually.
It is a Halloween specially kind of one. Yeah. I actually think I like the Halloween special release movies significantly more than the Valentine's Day ones.
I do too.
There's certain holidays where I'm like, these are good, fun films, and certain holidays where I'm like, this is just sappy
it's great
crap.
Because you can put whatever you want on at Halloween.
You know what you can put on at both of those times?
What?
Is Shaun of the Dead, because it's both a romantic comedy and a zombie film.
Good point. And that is this week's trailers, I guess.
Yeah.
But of course, before we can do anything with those, we're going to have to take a little walk over to the green room.
Let's go. All right, so we have a racially charged buddy film set in the historic American setting. We have a CGI reimagining of a classic piece of ballet opera.
Yep.
And we have a high-budget indie British monster adventure.
Yep, great. Here's my pick for this week, as it is my turn. It's got to be the Nutcracker. Disney has got the like market cornered on like adapting old fairy tales and old stories and reimagining them into something whimsical and crazy and CGI ridden. And I feel like that's a market that we really haven't capitalized on before at movie film studios.
So even if you look at like Snow White and the Huntsman, right?
Yes.
That's like this weird thing where also had Nick Frost in it.
Yes.
As did Attack the Block.
Yes.
He's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
It's a weird, like, everyone knows that sort of very Disney-fied version of Snow White.
Yep.
And then they go and make this film which is just like, no, this is like throwing knives and hunting and evil, murdery, sorcery sort of stuff going on there.
Have you also noticed that those films tend to come out at around about the same time? So, for instance, The Jungle Book, Disney made a live-action one relatively recently. And then Warner Brothers followed it up with an announcement that they were making their own as well, directed by Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis is doing
looking quite terrible. So because these stories are either in public domain or available outside of Disney's control, you can basically take whatever one you want, whatever one of Disney's like old animations you want, and just do like an original version of it instead. Yep. So, I mean,
what I also admire with Disney with this one is they haven't only just taken the Nutcracker.
Yes.
They've also put in the End the Four Realms, which is they're like, well, now we're going to go into this ridiculous fantasy world where we can have these ridiculous cinemascape landscapes and lots of weird creatures and beasts and have wars and fight them and everything like that, which was just like, that is not the Nutcracker by any stretch of the imagination.
It's one of those things where it's like, even if there's the tiniest hint of a bigger world in the short story or a hint of like a big battle or something, they're going to absolutely like capitalize on that. So I feel like if you take, let's see what film, like something like Bambi, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't know if Bambi was an original.
Yeah, Bambi, I think you may have picked the one original. I don't think it was a Grimm fairy tale. I don't think it was Hans Christian Andersen.
Oh, damn.
Is there a lesser known Hans Christian Andersen? One of those guys who wrote a lot of fairy tales that we can just sort of like, or operas. There's lots of sort of operas going on that are based on. There's got to be something else, right? Is there another poems, epic poems. Yeah. I don't know anything about Beowulf. They actually did Beowulf.
They did Beowulf, yeah.
Gilgamesh, that's another one as well, an epic poem.
Oh, man.
Yeah, what else is out there that we can just
take
for our own?
The only poet I know is T.S. Eliot, and his stuff is far too depressing to do as a big budget CGI.
Is there an Edgar Allan Poe film in here? Not the John Cusack sort of semi biopic.
Yeah.
But is it inside of the world of the Raven?
Yeah.
Inside of that sort of dark, depthy, his macabre sense of.
So we could do the Raven, but it must be the Raven and the something.
Yeah.
So we expand the world. So I've read The Raven before. It's been a while, but there's only 2 characters in it. It's the bird and the guy.
I mean, I say I've also read. No, I've seen the Simpsons special where I think we should.
The Simpsons one is very accurate.
I mean, it is the poem, right? It's
It's pretty much
the Raven, nevermore.
It is pretty much the poem.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, he talks about, I think, the death of his wife, Eleanor.
Yeah.
And then he's sort of haunted by visions of her, which is exacerbated by the cawing of this raven that's sort of somewhere in his chamber.
Yeah. Is there anything else? The only other one that I know is, again, a Simpsons reference with the Telltale Heart.
Telltale Heart, yeah.
I think what we'll do is we create this alternate reality called a Nevermore.
Yes.
And it is all of that sort of dark, macabre, Edgar Allan Poe inspired world.
Yep.
And this person who's perhaps learning about Edgar Allan Poe gets sucked into Nevermore.
Yep.
And they have this sort of raven who sits on their shoulder and sort of guides them through this fantastic world, which is just done in green screen.
Yeah, but it's super dark as well. Yeah. So it's nothing like Disney's version, which is syrupy and full of saturated color. No, ours is grim.
Yeah. The only saturated color there is sepia tone.
Exactly. All right, I like this. I like the name Nevermore as well, and we should also call it Nevermore Productions.
I think so. It actually reminds me a lot of Neil Gaiman, and I think he has a thing called Neverwhere. But we won't get into that.
There's also Pottermore as well.
Pottermore. So it's sure, why not?
Yeah.
I think we can probably get Neil Gaiman on board to help write it, because a lot of his. If you read the Graveyard book and some of his other stuff, it's very
Coraline,
Poe inspired.
Yes.
Very dark. I kind of like it. I think he's the perfect person to get on board.
Do you think he's quite a sort of renowned resource these days. Do you think we could get Neil Gaiman, or do we need to find all we have
to do is pitch him this idea, and he will be there
with
his skinny jeans and his
and I'm assuming a dark feather quill as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he writes with at his typewriter. Okay, great. So so we'll get him on board, but we should give him a general kind of overview of what's meant to happen in this. I mean, is it going to be a trilogy or a collection of films, or do we want to just have one film where something happens in it and then it's resolved?
I don't know. I mean, I think we can do that. Like Alice in Wonderland has this sort of she goes through, there's an adventure and she gets back to reality. But then later on, Alice, through the looking glass, she's sucked back into this world.
Yeah.
We were discussing off mic a little bit about the Chronicles of Narnia, which are very much the same thing. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they go through, they have their adventure, and they come back. And then sort of a couple of years later, some of those same characters are sucked into the world for another adventure.
Yeah.
Nevermore becomes this place, like Narnia.
It's like a hub. Yeah.
Where there is adventure to be had. There's at every turn and call, but there's at some point, once the adventure is resolved, those characters are returned to the real world, never knowing whether Nevermore will come calling again, rat-tat-tatting at the window door or whatever.
So why don't we make our central character Poe then? So maybe this is where Poe gets his... I mean, I know you mentioned not going sort of biographical before, but maybe Nevermore is the place where he gets his stories from.
I think we don't set Poe as a main character. Okay. This is a modern world character who is reading the works of Poe, going, oh, look at this, the mind, where would he get his ideas?
Yeah.
And then we realise, as we get drawn into Nevermore, there was this character called Poe who came through there 100 years before and changed the landscape of the world, and we learned that was Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, so Poe was like a native of Nevermore.
Oh, possibly the first human to ever get sucked in there.
Yeah,
and so you have this sort of this clash between,
I like this because it's shades of Jumanji. It's also shades of that Winnie the Pooh film that's coming out in a few weeks' time.
I think Winnie the Pooh film very much goes, oh, Christopher Robin's in the Thousand Acre Woods. Yeah. But what's more interesting is animated teddy bears running through the streets of London.
Yeah.
I don't think we go the other way. No. I think actually again, the word never's probably getting there. It feels a little bit never-ending story.
It also feels like that. It also feels like Hook.
In the third never-ending story, I'm pretty sure all the rock monsters come into the real world and may also have been on Halloween, and so everyone thinks that they're costumes. Maybe we don't go there quite so early with this, the first installment.
All right, so... okay. All right, so we're going grim.
I mean, as grim as the Reaper. It is so grim. It is so dark.
All right, so let's outline what's going to happen in this first story. So we start with a reader. They're reading the collected works of Edgar Allan Poe.
Exactly.
Something happens and they get sucked into this world of Nevermore.
Yep.
Once they're in there, though, they need to meet... Like, this is the classic stories that they always meet...
The Mr. Tumnus, the guide who shows them the world, and then things go askew, things go awry.
Yes. And there's I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but usually there's this whole kind of like, there was a prophecy and someone was meant to come from the outside and yada.
I mean, this is, the last time someone came through, it was Poe.
Yes.
And they set things in motion, and Poe said that, the only way that this will be undone is when the next person comes through, and this is the next person. I like the idea of the Raven as being potentially, not necessarily the Mr. Tumnus, but like the someone who sort of sits on their shoulder and is sort of cawing in their ear and sort of whispering in that sort of very...
Perfect, yep. Okay, here's the plot then. I've got a plot for you. So what if the world of Nevermore was ruined for generations after Poe came in there and stole the stories?
Right. Great.
And sort of released them back in the real world. And so since then, since the evil, dastardly Poe came through, the world of Nevermore has been nothing but grim, dark, deathly.
Always winter and never Christmas.
Exactly. So Poe, by going there and like taking the stories for himself, cursed Nevermore into eternal blackness.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the Raven was never. It used to be a canary, but after the curse came through, it became the most God-fearing, evil bird you can think of, which is the Raven, and that's so everything turned into post. Maybe Poe was like an old wizard or something like that, and I was actually
thinking. I'm fairly sure Edgar Allan Poe's like the original emo.
Yeah, maybe Nevermore had like no depression, no sadness ever. He came in, the first ever like depressed, sad person ever, and just cursed the world. Yeah. And from that point forward, it's been nothing but black, nothing but fringes over people's eyes, and nothing but
dark eyeliner.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so and now our new reader, should they be? Maybe they're also like emo and depressed as well, and that's why they're reading Poe, because it's like,
and the world doesn't understand me.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, I wish
I was in this world of like Edgar Allan Poe. The book just says, "Come on in," and then they get sucked into Nevermore, and then the Raven like talks to this person and says, "Things weren't always like this." Kaka.
So I mean, if that's the case, then how does the protagonist sort of overcome that? Because we want to set Nevermore up as a place that you can revisit.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that they can ever like really truly cure that place of being this sort of depressed wasteland filled of brambly thickets of black thorny vines and cracked desertscapes of dried mud or whatever the kind of images you get from those Poe books are.
Okay. This is an interesting one. So what if it's about like trying to reestablish a balance? So not trying to get it back to... So maybe the world of Nevermore was always kind of on a curse anyway. So it either was too happy or too...
Yes. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they blame Edgar Allan Poe for doing it, but he was actually trying to establish a balance because it was a bit more sort of like Wizard of Oz, sickly sweet.
Exactly.
And he's trying to go, no, we need to normalize this because this is not acceptable behavior. Yep. And he's tilted the scale in the opposite direction.
Way too far in the opposite direction. So maybe our new reader has to be convinced that the world needs to be balanced and in turn will balance their own emotions as well.
It's weird this is the first time we bring up Oz, because as a story where a protagonist goes into an alternate reality, do all of these alternate realities exist within and of themselves? Is there an Oz? Is there a Narnia? Is there a Nevermore? And there's this tenuous balance between all of these. So when one of them's up, the other one's down, and there's this sort of like link between them all. Or can we not get the intellectual rights for all of those different places?
Well, I was going to say, you know what we can get the intellectual rights for? Like the works of H.P. Lovecraft.
That's true.
Like, why don't we just jam that in there as well?
I think maybe we'll introduce H.P. Lovecraft in one of the like part 2s of this sort of story.
It's a post-credit sequence.
Yeah. Where you just see the tentacle
of Cthulhu, just like creep out from the side of it, or just poke its head out of the ocean or something, and then like we've established that Nevermore also exists in the same universe as the crazy creations of H.P. Lovecraft. Okay, but we still need to sort out what this story is going to be about. Okay, so sense of rebalancing it. The Raven is all about like we need to rebalance it back to where it was, and you are now our only hope. You're the first person to enter Nevermore in 250 years. I don't know how long Edgar Allan Poe's been dead for, but like I'm going to assume quite a while at this point. And it's only you. Like, you are the one that are most like Poe, and that's why you've been brought into Nevermore.
I think we can introduce ideas of writing as well, and the imagination.
Yes.
And using the power of words and poetry and descripting to affect change within the world. Kind of in the way that, I don't actually remember specifically what books they are, where you get sucked in. There's a John Candy film where he's a screenwriter for a soap opera, and he gets sucked into the world, and he has to type his way out of it in this sort of way.
Adaptation was one of those as well.
Sure. I want to think Page Master.
Possibly. That goes animated as well. Like, it's a kid that falls into a book in a library, and then it goes from live action to animated. Yeah.
So in that sort of way, they're using the poetry and prose to influence the world around them to their own effect. And then, I mean, we don't really need the story so much. You look at Alice in Wonderland; it's a series of short little encounters between weird and random characters. We have, some sort of Cheshire Cat style character. We have some sort of Queen of Hearts style character. And they're all sort of macabre, and one's got a goat's head. I don't know anything about the works of Edgar Allan Poe, but I feel as though that's sort of like,
does not matter. Like, we just need to jam in enough references in there to like get people across the line in terms of it being an Edgar Allan Poe story. But here's what I think we should do, right? So if the magic of this world comes from writing, so our protagonist needs to be like an aspiring writer as well.
Exactly.
And all they've been writing is like their emotional thoughts in their diary, right? They come into this world with their diary, and everything they write in there sort of comes to life in Nevermore.
Yes. So this person actually has to face their literal emotions.
Exactly.
Like, that's the confrontation that they have to fight off with at the end.
The end journey is trying to find the exact like paragraph or the phrase that they need to write in order to set things correct, because they don't have the power in them to come up with that sentence or paragraph in their own way. They need to journey to like the center of Nevermore to find the sacred scroll with the one paragraph to rule them all.
Exactly.
One paragraph to bind them. That's how we should do it. And the best thing about this as well, because all the magic is done just by writing in a book, we don't have to spend all that money on like complex VFX.
I disagree.
No?
I think the entire thing is overly complicated VFX. Just these landscapes, the landscapes which are but rendered in soft focus. And I'm like, why are you doing it in soft focus? Like, you can do it in infinite focus. It's a CG render. But everything is just stupidly expensive for no reason.
All right, can we also do, because I liked, I saw one of the latest Avenger film, and I haven't seen Doctor Strange before, but I really like the way that they have that like sparkler fireworks style of magic. Can we also do something like that for when they're writing?
Yes, I like that. The other thing that I really want to bring in, you remember the Spike Jonze Where the Wild Things Are?
Yes.
I like those sort of creaturey kind of like things as well.
But we can't do puppets like they did. It has to full-blown CG.
Full-blown CG that looks so real that you think they're puppets. That's how much money we're going to spend
really?
on it.
So you're actually going for like a realistic look.
We're going to spend so much money that you like, it just would have been cheaper if you made them as puppets. But like, no, we deliberately went CG, and we spent spent more money than it would have cost if we'd done it practically to make it look like practical.
You know what's
effects.
good about this too? We only need one live action actor.
Yeah.
So this is how we can save our money. We only hire an actor, and they're going to be young too, so we don't have to pay them that much.
I think it's a female character as well.
Yep,
like it's got a hark to that Alice in Wonderland, to that
then let's
Dorothy Gale.
Yep. Let's just cast Mackenzie Foy, who plays the princess in the Nutcracker film, or whoever she is, the main character.
I think it's like casting Mia Wasikowska or whatever. Like, you can't just rip them from one film into the other.
Yeah, because we've never done that
one before. We've got to pick someone who was like a child actor, and who is now sort of on that sort of like 17 to 19 age range.
What's the one from Super 8? Ellie Fanning, yeah.
That's a really good casting. I like that one.
Because I think she's around about 19 or so now.
Sure.
There was also Chloe Grace Moretz.
We put her in a film recently. I don't remember exactly what that was. I think Ellie Fanning's actually pretty good casting for this one.
Great.
She's our...
She's a really good actress as well.
So just not even, I would say, surprisingly good, but like I think she was young Dakota Fanning in I Am Sam.
Yes,
which were like she was like less than 6 months old when she was in her first film. So she's got some pedigree in there.
Yeah.
I like that. I really like that.
And then we just need to cast voices for the rest of them because it's all going to be CG.
Exactly. Like, I'm sure like the moment the script is written, the Helen Mirrens and Morgan Freemans and Keira Knightley's will come out of the woodworks and just go, we're not going to audition. We're just going to be in this film.
Beauty and the Beast got Ewan McGregor to play Lumiere, and he's doing the worst French accent I've ever heard in my life. They got Ian McKellen to play the clock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, just how?
It's because these guys are like, we can get paid an obscene amount of money to go into a recording studio for a day, rather than spend 6 months on set, like with grueling conditions, having to get up every morning.
Yeah, we need the ultimate actor then to play the Raven. So the actor that like would be you just would not suspect would be in that film, because they usually are of a like I'm thinking like Jack Nicholson, because he's like the actor that would never ever be in a Disney film. Yet all these other actors that you think would never be in a Disney film tend to be in Disney films. So I really think Jack Nicholson is the guy, is the Raven.
I think there's only one other character I think we should cast, and that is probably Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes,
because I feel as though even if it's just sort of shot in flashbacks or it's shot in, he's got to be in that film as well.
Mm-hmm.
Who looks like Edgar Allan Poe?
He's an interesting character. Who's coming to mind?
I suppose in a lot of ways, like most of the flashback stuff would be a young Edgar Allan Poe.
Yep. I don't think Edgar Allan Poe was ever young. He just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that was ever really that young. I'm just giving you a visual description of what Edgar Allan Poe looked like. Who does that look like?
Sunken eyes and a dark mustache.
Yeah. Well, the mustache is easy. We can CGI on that onto some actor.
Actually looks like a little bit like Anthony Hopkins, but Anthony Hopkins is way too old.
Doesn't matter. Does not matter.
I think I think we've spent so much of our CG budget on these animals that we
can't
probably
afford
to someone a bit younger.
Anthony Hopkins.
Eddie Redmayne's way too sharp-faced. This is a bit of a doughy-faced boy, this one.
That's all right. We just say, Eddie Redmayne's kind of a method actor, right?
Jack Black just played R.L. Stine. We can't have him playing another horror author.
Yeah, no, we can't. Who else does he look like? Tom Hanks?
Again, Tom Hanks is way too old. I think you kind of forget that. Yeah, he's whitehead Tom Hanks, even though most of the characters that he plays. Who's in that mid-range there?
That looks like Edgar Allan Poe.
I just think anyone at this point, and any actor that you can name to get us out of the hole here of not being able to name actors.
Ewan McGregor.
I think that's not a bad idea. Ewan McGregor as Edgar Allan Poe.
Yep.
And then we have Ellie Fanning as
our reader, writer, emo.
And then all the most famous actors you've ever heard of coming out to do voice work.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson as the Raven.
Meryl Streep. Anyone who's won multiple Oscars.
Meryl Streep needs to voice multiple characters.
I think Tom Hanks is probably in there as a voice as well.
He absolutely is. We also need to get Chadwick Boseman in there because he's super
Sam
famous
Rockwell's
right
in there as well.
Yep, absolutely. No, yeah. Actually, Chadwick Boseman's in a Disney film, so he can't be in it.
That's fine. I'm sure we can get as many people. We'll get Vigo and
Vigo for sure. Yeah, Vigo with his like New Yorkie accent.
Yeah, Mahershala Ali.
Put him in there.
Before they're so hot commodities from their Oscar wins on Green Book. So
can we also give them like the same relationship in our film as well?
Definitely.
Just a little bit of like.
I can imagine like an old school jazz pianist in this sort of Edgar Allan Poe world where the piano's slightly out of tune and it sounds a bit.
So here it is. The pianist and then the piano is actually Vigo.
Oh, he is the piano.
So he's like a cursed man who's been turned into a piano and he's been cursed to have.
Yes, that famous Edgar Allan Poe story about the cursed piano.
It's 100% a story.
All right. I think the last thing that we need to come up with, because it's not just the name for this film, which we do need to come up with, but also a name for like
the series,
the Chronicles of Nevermore. Which I mean, it just sounds a bit too much like the Chronicles of Narnia. We need another word for Chronicles, like the
collected stories, the tales of...
Omnibus is like a collection of stories.
Yeah.
Is there a collection of... Is it the Nevermore Omnibus?
I like that.
Yeah?
That's great, because you know what's good about it? Omnibus does not roll off the tongue
Not at all.
And it's just like the kind of devilish trickery that Edgar Allan Poe would be absolutely renowned for. So the Nevermore Omnibus.
Yeah.
Part 1.
Quoth the Raven.
Quoth?
Quoth the Raven.
Quoth.
I say quoth.
I thought it was quoth.
Quoth the Raven, Nevermore.
Nevermore. All right, yeah, great. So the Nevermore Omnibus, Part 1, quoth the Raven.
Sure.
Great.
Coming soon.
Tomorrow. So, right. I think that's a wrap.
I think so.
Housekeeping, as per usual, we are online at moviefilmstudios.net, where you can find all of our previous episodes, our bios, and of course, Mafuzawadada, our database of films that we've created on this podcast. Search Facebook for Movie Film Studios and join the community where we post clues as to the trailers that we've watched in upcoming episodes. This one...
Green Book, easy enough. Slaughterhouse Rules. Rules spelt with a Z on the end to make it extra sort of like teen angsty.
Yeah. Nutcracker will be in there. I'm sure there's an emoji for a Nutcracker.
I'm sure
because Americans love them.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We are, of course, on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and any other place that you get fine podcasts from. And if you happen to get bad podcasts from a place, we're probably on there too.
Yeah.
So go for it. And I think that's it.
All that remains is to thank you again for listening this week. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.
Watch me